everyone, and I'm finally up with my podcast, Director Talk, and here is Jesal, Jesal TV with me today. So tell me, Jesal, how did you start your journey as a DJ, as a music producer, as a podcaster, all of that?
The DJing, I guess, started. Oh, first of all, thank you for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate it, and hope your viewers are well. Me as a DJ, I started, I guess, when I was 6 years old. I saw a very famous DJ called Jam Master Jay on TV. He was part of Run DMC, and he was doing this thing with records, and I was like, "What is that? What is that?" So I ran to my parents' vinyl player and started scratching. Completely ruined the record, and they screamed at me, but I locked it in my memory. And then when I was about 18, 19, I went to university, and one of the guys I lived with had a set of decks and vinyl, and I was like, can I have a go? And then instantly, bang, it all just came, and I became obsessed with it. So for quite a few years after that, I just kept practicing and practicing and buying records and getting better. And eventually it came to a point when I did my degree, and I had a chance to, go into whatever world it was, business, this, that. But the DJing was going so well that fortunately I was able to do that full time. So I went into it completely full time. I started in clubs and mainly playing kind of hip hop and R&B, but doing everything really: dance, Bollywood, this, that, everything, any kind of music you can imagine. And it went really well. So I was doing kind of weddings as well, and corporate functions, private functions, clubs, playing to thousands of people. It was very good. So I did that full time with no safety net or anything for about, I'd say 8 or 9 years, about that.
Great. So how was your first gig? How was it? Like, what was the most memorable part of it?
Oh, it was terrible. But
That's right.
every DJ's first gig is undoubtedly terrible. But there comes a point in it when you're like, oh my God, I did something right. And that's what you kind of remember, and you have to hold on to that, because there are so many things to learn when you're DJing about all the technical aspects, or just making sure you can hear things, making sure they can hear you, making sure you're playing the music in time, and all that kind of stuff. So honestly, I'd say it takes at least 6 months until you're comfortable being able to play out into an actual real life crowd. Even if you've been practicing for a while, it takes a long time, really.
So what is difficult when you're doing a gig? Like, is it holding the attention of the crowd or the music or the whole coordination of it? Is what is more difficult?
I think once you've kind of mastered the various elements of DJing, with any job, I think nowadays the most difficult part is dealing with people, if anything, really.
Yeah.
But like for example, a wedding, you're dealing with different generations. You've got the young kids, you've got the ones your age, you've got the grandparents, and they all want different things at the same time,
Mm.
and you cannot please everyone. Luckily, if you're in a club, people tend to be on the same kind of wavelength. But outside of people, I'd say really it's just making sure that you've got a good flow going, that you're starting off the evening and you're taking them on a journey, and it kind of builds in a crescendo and up and down and things like that. I was used to doing 5-hour sets, so it'd start at 9 o'clock at night and finish at 2 o'clock in the morning, and no breaks. I wouldn't even go to the toilet, anything like that. It would just be like, that's it. And that's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but the more and more you do it, then it becomes second nature, really.
All right. So what do you like remixing a lot? Like Bollywood or Western hip hop? What are the things that you enjoy?
I think, well, I mean, if you're talking about mixing music, anything, really anything. I'm very lucky like that. I have no boundaries. When I was growing up, I didn't put limitations on myself. So I felt very lucky. There are certain things where I can stand it for about half an hour, and that's it. I'm done. Like Bhangra, I love Bhangra, but I can play Bhangra for half an hour. That's it. I'm just like, okay, I've had enough. Probably same with rock music as well and things like that. But I guess my favorite was probably hip hop, but over the years it kind of changes. Music is constantly changing. So
Yes, right. So what are the tips that you would like to give while remixing for young DJs or people who are just trying their hand at DJing?
well, you see, when you're saying remixing, but
Yeah.
remixing is more of a production thing. So I'll probably come to that later, because I do remixes from a production thing. But I'd say for DJs themselves, I would say the biggest thing I could say is really just focus on the music and focus on practicing and getting things right, because it's the easiest time ever to become a DJ for sure. The barriers to entry have dropped massively. You can pick up um, a decent set of decks for not much money now. Before it used to cost thousands, and now you can get something for, I mean, I'm talking in UK money, for like, not even £200, which is not a huge amount. But the main thing is just practice and do it for the right reasons. That's what I'd say. If you're doing it to impress a girl or impress your friends or whatever like that, you'll lose interest very, very quickly. But if you really love music and you want to become a DJ, you will just become obsessed with it and practice. Also, I'd say record yourself and listen back to those mixes, because that's when you can really pick up the mistakes that you've made, work on them, and then move forward. And everything is a progress, like a journey of progress. You're never fully formed anything whenever you start any job. It's a journey, isn't it?
Yes, right. So, how did you end up being a music producer? Like, is it because of DJing or you just love producing music? And I saw your 1 minute TikTok album or something you have released right now. How is
Yeah,
it
that's right.
going?
It's going really well. So basically, I started producing probably around 2007. I'd tried for years, and I kept buying these kind of like, I'd buy like a sampler, I'd buy a keyboard, I'd buy this, I'd buy that, and I just couldn't get into it. And finally, I bought an Apple computer, an iMac, I think it was, and it has Logic on there, which is the kind of like the software that you can use. And I plugged in a MIDI keyboard, and suddenly, bang, it all just made sense. Everything made sense. And I started, putting out 3 beats a day kind of thing, and that for me is what clicked. So that was about about maybe 12, 13 years ago or something. And then gradually it just kind of, I was doing my own artistry thing. I was working with other people, and um, but I never managed to put out my own album. That was the thing. I was working on one for ages, and then sort of life kept getting in the way. And then this year, because of the pandemic, I guess like something inside of me just snapped. I was like, it's this year or never. Just do something. At least put out one album. I had so much material, and then so I ended up releasing this thing called 1 minute TikTok anthems. So it's basically 20 tracks, and each one is 1 minute long. That's it. And they're basically instrumentals, except for the first track. They're all just instrumentals. And I'm shocked. I really thought, I was like, if 100 people listen to this, great. And I got the numbers through last week, and I was shocked. Like, it's had tens of thousands of listens. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I'm not even advertising it really or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I think it was just kind of a bit of luck and some good melodies and stuff. But let's see what happens. I'm working on something else as well right now.
Okay, great. So, do you think the pandemic has helped you as a DJ, as a music producer, as a podcaster, or was it much better before the pandemic? Like, how is the difference for?
As a DJ, no. The pandemic has been a disaster for DJs, and fortunately, I'm not a full-time DJ anymore, so I'm not massively affected. For me now, I'd be DJing once or twice a month, and from monetary point of view, I'm very lucky. So that I'm not reliant on that. But I have friends who are DJs who are full-time DJs, and they're really struggling. They've had to go back to just doing any kind of work that they can, and it's very sad. Production wise, I think it's helped me definitely. It's really helped me focus and kind of learn different skills that I didn't have before. Podcasting wise, I've been podcasting for about 6 years now, and I've had all the technical skills kind of in the journey as I'm going and stuff. But this year, me and one of my friends, we've actually set up a podcast production company. So say, for example, if you came out with a podcast, but you didn't know the kind of technical aspects, how to improve it, how to, make it sound really good, then we can help with that. So, and that's been a big thing. I think so many people have started podcasts this year, which is a great thing. I am, I've been listening to podcasts for like 12, 15 years. I've always loved them. I've had my own one for 6 years now. We've had like, I think well over 100,000 listeners and stuff like that. Which is not huge numbers, but considering I've never advertised and all that kind of stuff, then it's pretty good. But the main thing for me is helping people to kind of make their podcast sound better, basically, and it's really great being able to do that. So yeah, that's been, I think, helped by the pandemic in many ways.
Mhm. Okay, so which are your favorite podcasts that you listen to, like normally?
I'll try and shout out a couple of smaller ones. There's a really good one called Native Immigrants Podcast,
I saw
which
that
is
on Twitter today. You're making paneer.
the guy. So there's basically a husband and wife that don't live too far from me, and and they do a podcast together, and the husband is obsessed with paneer. He just even I've been out to a restaurant with him before, and all he eats is paneer, and I was like, yeah, let's just shout out paneer. But they're really good as a husband and wife team, and they talk about lots of different aspects of being British Asian, British Indian, basically, but are frequently taboo subjects, but it's really, really fascinating. And yeah, I really appreciate them. Otherwise, I just love things like music podcasts, football podcasts, things like that. Like I have kind of, quite eclectic taste.
Yeah, seeing your Twitter feed, so it's all sarcasm and like humor.
My Twitter feed is like the diary of a madman. Yeah, I have
Yeah,
many different passions, basically. Yeah.
yeah, right. And you were going to tell us about mixing, the regarding mixing music. How do you
Oh,
do
like
that?
remixing music.
Remixing,
Yeah.
yeah.
So remixing music is such a great way. I think nowadays it's kind of the way that most people get started into music production. It's when you're taking a famous song and then you get the vocals from it, and then you just make your own beats and mesh them together, basically. And it's funny, I haven't actually done that many of them. I only really started doing it this year, and they got really popular quite quickly. And I was like, oh wow, maybe I should just do more of it. My primary focus has been on my own kind of artistry, but the remixes it's really good fun, and it's actually really good practice. The more you do it, the more you can just learn about production. So I'd say I mean, in terms of Hindi music, there are just remixes all over the place.
All of it.
The level of production, music production in India, I'd say is probably one of the top 5 countries in the world, I would say.
Yeah.
Like just from a technical perspective, from artistry, amazing, absolutely amazing.
Lot of creativity in Indians with Bhangra and Punjabi music and all kinds, like regional, everything they have. And they remix
Yeah.
almost every song. So which will be your favorite song that you would remix if you get a chance?
What, like a Hindi song or what? Or just anything?
Hindi or just anything, like whatever.
Hindi songs, I don't know. I've done a few in the past. I can't really think of. I don't know. That's a difficult question. I think if it was anything at all, I'd probably do something kind of quite maybe like Latin music. Latin music's really good right now, reggaeton and things like that. Those are really exciting genres. Like there's this artist called Bad Bunny, and like I've been listening to him for a while, and actually his album that he released back in February, March is the most popular album in the whole world, like full stop, in 2020. But it's really interesting because in the UK he hasn't had an album or single in the top 100. So it's almost like this weird kind of thing. In the UK they just don't listen to anything that's not English. And even that's reflected in like Bhangra and Hindi music. It's really difficult for artists to break into the top 100 here, because they're not singing in English. And it's kind of really weird. It's not that people aren't listening, it's just they're not listening at a volume. So it's quite strange how that happens. I don't know.
Yeah, I recently seen a video where they had shared, I think on Twitter or Instagram, where an Italian artist way long back he sang an Italian song like English. So that is how it got hit. Some
Yeah, I saw that
yeah,
one. So he was just kind of
yeah.
making up the words,
Make
basically.
he was
Yeah.
singing gibberish and like he was just making up the lyrics and it got famous just because people they want to listen to English lyrics. So maybe that is why.
But
Yeah.
I mean, even if you think about, the way that, whether Bollywood has gone since the 70s, I was like, one of my friends, we were talking about, I am a disco dancer, or
Yeah.
kind of like Up Jessakoi, all those kind of,
Yeah.
those were all because of the disco era.
Yeah.
So they weren't like official remixes, but they were kind of like just taking elements of Western music and just making their own version of it. So in India, they've been doing that for so long, for decades now, and that's why I think India is so good at that. And they always manage to, okay, I'm not going to say always. Sometimes it's just a straight blatant copy, but sometimes they really come out with something creative and their own twist on it.
Great. So about podcasts, like what kind of equipment are good for a podcaster? A person who's starting out or maybe wants to make a career out of it. The
I would
kind of
say I would say the most important thing really is a decent microphone. And like I'll show you this one. This one is called the Blue Yeti. So the company is called Blue, and this is called the Yeti. And it's really not that expensive. I think you can get it on sale for like maybe 80, 90 pounds or something. Whereas in the old days, this would have cost you like 5 times as much, basically. And you don't even need to get this, but just something like a good microphone, learning how to set it up. Also, I'd say this is called a pop shield. So I don't know if you can see this, but basically you just put it in front of the microphone and it just stops the P. Like if you go like like that, then this would stop it, and it just makes it sound a lot cleaner. And so I think a good microphone is the most important thing, really. And then after that, it's just kind of learning to edit it. There's so much free software, you know, Audacity, GarageBand, all these ones, so many of them are free now. You don't have to spend money on it, but it just takes a little bit. Like when I started 6 years ago, it would take me 4 hours to edit like a half-an-hour podcast, because you're just like focusing on everything. But the more you do it, the better you get, really. But there are lots of tricks. You can take it to the next level. But if you're just starting out, make sure that your microphone is acceptable and that you're speaking into it. You're not like shouting into it. The volume level's good all the way through. And then it's just about learning how to upload it in the right way. You know, there are so many good tutorials out there as well, but, you know, just copy your favorite podcast, the good sounding ones, basically.
Right. So who is your favorite DJ? Like who would you like to work with if you get a chance?
Oh, I mean, my favorite DJ, there's a few. I think I made a list a couple of months ago, actually. There's a really good one called Caper, and she's actually British Asian, but I think she lives in New York now. And I think we're around similar age. She grew up not far from me, but I don't think I've ever met her or ever worked with her or anything, but she is amazing. So good. She does, again, like all different genres of music, basically, and mixes them together. And her skill level is like way above mine. Like she's unbelievable. And there's a couple of others. I'd say someone like, there's a DJ called Shorty Blitz, who's probably my biggest influence when I was growing up. He's a UK guy who kind of does mainly hip hop, but also R&B. Fantastic DJ. And I've interviewed him before, and he was so humble. Like, I think that's the thing you realize. Like, I think the DJs who are just starting out, you know, 1 or 2 years, they get a bit of popularity, they get very big headed. But then as they get better and better, they get so humble and like they really, they know how to treat people in a very nice way, and I think that's one of the best things, really.
Your favorite moment as a DJ? Any memory?
I would say
Any
there was two
wild stories or anything like that?
there were two moments on the same night. There was the worst and the best within half an hour space. So I was doing a New Year's Eve gig at a place called Mint Leaf, which is just off Leicester Square in London. And there were like, I don't know, 1,500 people there or whatever. It's like a proper British Asian gig, basically. And one of my friends, her brother came along, and it hit midnight, right? Everyone's celebrating, Happy New Year, blah, 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 blah. I'm getting my song ready. I start playing my song, everyone goes crazy. And then her friend comes over to talk to me. Her brother comes over to talk to me. And he stepped on the plug.
Wow.
And the whole thing just went completely dead.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my God,
Oh my
like
God.
that is a worst case scenario. And fortunately, people were kind of still celebrating. So I managed to just plug it back in. It takes 2 minutes to reboot everything. But that was like the nightmare scenario. But the best bit was half an hour later when everything kind of got back on track. So it's about 12:30 at night. And then it was really weird. It was actually when I was playing Bollywood music, and I was playing Up Jessa Koi, and that song just killed it. Like absolutely everyone went crazy, and that's always been one of my like best memories. So like that's how DJing can turn from like the worst to the best
Worst
in
to
half
the
an
best.
hour. Yeah.
Yeah, it's only because of the favorite song.
Yeah,
Up
and
Jessa
the
Koi.
amount of alcohol as well that people have had at
Alcohol.
that.
Yeah. That kind of multiplies the effect.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
something like that, I mean, that song was, I think, released before we were even born, to be honest. But it's funny because, you know, your parents listen to it and it's such a happy song that's so eternal. People just loved it, you know. So yeah.
Great. So, what are the future projects you're working on? Like anything, any music album, anything?
Yeah, I'm actually working on my second album right now. I've come up with a couple of names for it, but I haven't kind of cemented the name. But that should be ready to kind of submit hopefully in about the next month or so. So I'm hoping for a January release. So that'll be kind of similar. It'll be like instrumental. So I think that'll be more hip hop based and a bit more experimental. But one thing is if you're kind of making if you're making instrumental music, it's very universal because you don't have to worry about language barriers. And it also can get incorporated into social media, or film editors like using it and stuff like that. So it's really nice when you kind of hear it through that lens. And in terms of, I've always wanted, I had an album that I was going to release about 10 years ago, and I've never put it out. And I'm guessing the kind of ship has sailed, but one of my ambitions really is in 2021 to just sort of, you know, modernize it and then eventually put it out. That would be really good.
Okay, so we'll be looking forward to it. Like whenever you release it in 2021, or most probably talk about it the next time.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. So before we can wrap it up, any message for the listeners, for music producers, podcasters, DJ, or simply the listeners that you would like to give out any message or shout out about your own platforms?
Oh, I'll do both. I mean, as a message to creators out there, no matter what creative you are, whether you're in film or TV or music or podcast, anything, now is your time. Like this year has crystallized for so many people that it's now or never. Just do it. Go out and just start, no matter what it is. It won't be good at the beginning, but just don't worry. Just start and just gradually improve and focus on getting better. And you can do it. You know, this is your time. From a more selfish point of view, please go and follow me on all my social media platforms. Everything is I'm on everything, but it's just Jesal TV. So Jesal TV. I'm sure you'll put it in there as well. And yeah, if you could listen to my album, that would be great. It's available to buy, but it's also on all the streaming platforms and everything. So yeah, it's called 1 Minute TikTok Anthems. And yeah, so that would be great if you could check it out. And thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much, Jessil. It was a great talking to you. Great evening. Wish you a great evening and great weekend. Thank you so much for coming on my show.
Thanks so much. Okay,
Thanks.
bye.
Okay, bye.